guys
What's
have to
up,
say about
guys?
this.
Hannah should have clicked record 5 minutes
Hey,
ago.
what's going up, guys? We're back on another episode of HWP EP. Nope, that's not correct.
Yeah, wait, what's the EP part?
HWF EP.
Okay.
How we
Stupid!
find
Okay,
I'm just
so
granted
to give my basic summary, I just said the first chapter basically starts with a hookup, and then he also goes into how he doesn't really, like, he's kind of dehumanized through all of this. And then he helps his mom pack up and move to Atlanta, where she lived before Saeed was born, and they still kind of are struggling to communicate. It's just still the same kind of silence, even though, like, you know, even with his mom's sickness, like, they just don't really talk. Like, they don't talk in depth. It's all very surface level. And then Saeed goes over to a friend's house, and then, like, kind of hooks up with the friend of the car, but then the guy speeds away and almost basically kills Saeed.
Did you also call him the N-word?
No,
No.
that's not.
Different?
Just botanist.
No, the guy...
Dane?
Yeah, Dane.
No, Dane's friend says the N-word during a game of, like,
Oh, right,
I don't know,
right.
like,
Yes.
2K or something.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
NBA.
what is it, NBA 2K?
NBA.
Some basketball game. And then Saeed next goes to a party, leaves with this guy named Daniel, and then goes to hook up with him, but then gets actually beat, like, really bad. But luckily, I guess Daniel was, like, pretty drunk, so he didn't kill him. And then after that, we see Saeed have, like, a panic attack in this coffee shop he always goes to like, do work, I guess. Well, he gets into the Master of Fine Arts program at Rutgers, Newark. And then, he has a panic attack in this coffee shop he always goes to do work. And then he like, kind of remembers what happened with Daniel, and he can't escape this feeling of death, basically.
Yeah.
So that's the overall summary of everything
Yeah.
that happened.
One thing that, like, stood out to me, like, especially during, like, the Daniel part that was, like, really concerning was him just, like, saying, "You're already dead, you're already dead, you're already dead, and I'm so evil, I'm so evil, I'm so evil." Which is, it's kind of silly, which he's drunk, but it's also, like,
terrifying.
horrifying.
Yeah.
So evil.
So, like, and the other thing he mentions is, like, he told no one where he was going. So he could have literally just died and no one would have known.
No, yeah. I mean, the only reason, yeah.
His mom would have known once he hadn't talked to him in a while, but it's not like his mom was going to talk to him, like, that night.
Yeah, and like Hannah said, the only reason he didn't die is because, like, he was so drunk he just passed out while he was fighting.
Yeah.
So,
And,
yeah, it was very, I mean, that was one of my key points, because, you know, it's very important. But, I mean, key points aside, I think I'd like to discuss the key passage I chose more, which was, let me go, it's on page 106, and it's, I'll read it real quick, because I think it's an interesting one. As I write, I want to pull myself out of him and out of that room, but outside Botanist's bedroom is the Latino man who years later will look back at me while I fuck him, not hard enough apparently, and sneer, "Aren't you a black man?" Outside of that bedroom is the dating profile of a handsome 20-something living in Brooklyn who notes in all capital letters, "Not interested in black, Mexican, or Asian cuisine." Then there's the younger black gay friend who will confess that someone told him once, "I just don't find black men beautiful, but I love you as friends." I still don't know what to say to the men outside the botanist's bedroom. There are so many of them, so many rooms where they're waiting to wound one another with their bodies and their preferences. However many masks we invent and deploy, in the end, we cannot control what other people see when they look at us. Lower your voice, change your posture, call yourself Cody, dress differently if you want. A man might still decide when he looks at you, all he sees is an N-word or an F-slur, or both. So I picked...
The botanist here is the guy
botanist.
who he hooks up with and calls him the N-word, and they have a really toxic
I mean, yeah, he literally
relationship.
calls him the N-word, like, right before this key passage.
Yeah.
So, but I chose it just because, like, I feel like it kind of, I mean, it represents the main idea of kind of what we see throughout these chapters, especially of just, like, like, really how you look is how people are gonna treat you no matter what, and you can't do anything to change that fact. So, like, within the first, like, few seconds of meeting someone, they've already kind of decided how they want to treat you and how they're gonna act with you. And it's not something you can escape, even if you want to try to, like, hurt these people. There's nothing you can really do, because at the end of the day, you're still kind of losing.
Yeah, that's kind of something I thought about like a while ago. Is like, not like a very comparable situation, but in middle school I felt like I was getting sort of like bullied to an extent, and I thought like, oh, I would stop getting bullied if I like changed my reaction or changed my presentation. But the thing about it is, if someone like has set it out to just be mean to you, there's not really much you can do about it. You can internalize it differently, but like whatever you react with externally is not really going to change anything.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I've had a similar experience with that as well, of like acting a certain way and trying to change how I act, but it's still not changing how someone acts towards me. And so, like, no matter what you do, the person at the end of the day, even if they say like they want to change things or they want to be different or whatever, like, at the end of the day, they've already kind of decided how they want to act towards you. And so, like, if that's what they've decided, then they decided they're just gonna see you as like not even a real person, and it's just this idea of an identity or a derogatory idea of an identity, then that's how they're gonna see you.
I think it's more of like in order to fix the problem, you shouldn't change yourself. They should be able to like change themselves in a way. But it's like not everyone is open to changing themselves. Not everyone sees the fact that not everyone knows that they need to change. Especially if no one tells them
even
anything.
wants to think about that.
That's
Thinks
true.
about changing.
Right.
Yeah, they don't wanna like face the fact that they're actually wrong and that they need to change. And
and that's why I think like the number one sort of response to that is actually to just like make sure they don't show up ever. Like, just make sure, try your best to like just distance yourself.
yeah, you have to give them the space and the distance in order for them to figure out how to fix themselves and how to grow past that.
Yeah, and so you don't keep getting abused.
Take a left. Left is 80.
Which, done with summary?
That was kind of my main stuff with Summarizer. I feel like those were because these are kind of the main things I took from the passage, and I talked about, or from the reading, and I talked about similar things in my kind of overall what is the theme and purpose of this, like, paragraph. So, I mean,
Yeah. I can move on to the legend, what I had to say, because I wrote kind of similar things. So I had to identify like 5 main like direct quotes for each of my reasons as why like this was written as a memoir. And so like the main parts that I chose was his mom coughing even as they were putting the boxes onto the truck, because I thought about it, like it still reinforces the idea like his mom is sick, like the ER was not a one and done, she's better now, there's still like something going on, it's not gone, and it probably will come back, unfortunately. And then the second part, which was every time when he meets someone for sex, he always like changes who his name is, and it says, I can pull out from between my parted lips and hand to the stranger standing in front of me. The name has made me into whoever I needed to be. So showing like how he always changed who he was for the person, and kind of what they wanted and what he wanted from it. And then also I wanted to see in his eyes, like the eyes of a straight man, how he like kind of shows the fluidity of sex and gender, and how he kind of like broke every straight man. I don't know if that's probably not the right word.
And I mean, that's kind of, I feel like that's kind of how he acts about it though in the book.
Yeah. He says he would like maybe we can find it. Hold on. You can keep going, John.
Okay. And then like lastly, a joke I used to repeat in those days, why be happy when you can be interesting? I knew how to be interesting. And then lastly, on like the last page of the reading was when we revealed like the mom is like when she first had him and they lived by the highway in like, was it Dallas? I think it was.
Yeah, it was in Dallas off of Northwest Highway.
Yeah, how she was like, I thought about giving you up to the grandmother, but I'm glad that I still held on to you. And I thought based on looking at these 5 points, I think like the main topic of this kind of part, and especially like what this reading is about, is like changing your identity and who you are for other people, and how that is never good in your way, because we see this with like when he meets new people, and also when he's talking about his mom, when he's talking to his mom. I remember it was like in previous chapters, but he was like, it felt like he did, like his mom didn't know him, and he didn't, like he wasn't being honest with her.
He was saying like, he was like, I came out to her as gay, but I didn't come out to her as myself.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's something I also kind of identified in general, of like a theme being just that like you can't always seek external validation for who you are. You have to find that within yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You have to find that within yourself, and you have to learn how to be comfortable with your own identity, because no one else is going to do that for you, no matter what you do. So.
Yeah. So I found the.
Oh, did you find that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So this is after he's basically trying to like seduce this guy.
Which
He's
one?
rizzing him up.
Oh, the one who gets into the car crash.
Oh yeah, that guy.
Yeah,
So he slinked out of his car before I had a chance to read his face. I wanted to see it in his eyes, in the eyes of every straight man I'd marked his mind that season. That I was right about how slippery gender, sex, and want really are. To prove that I could shame one straight man after another, and by shaming them in a way, own them. However temporarily, however falsely. Or maybe I just wanted a distraction from how I felt when my body wasn't pinned against another man's body. It didn't feel like lust, really. It had a tinge of meanness to it, what I was doing. Spite, even. Like I was teaching one man after another a lesson he maybe didn't need to learn. I think I was reading that like a couple nights ago, and after I read that, I had to put the book down, because like he recognizes this with this sort of like temporarily and falsely. This is like really messed up. This is a really bizarre way of viewing other people, really sort of very toxic way, I think, of viewing other people.
as like, well, I mean, I want to say almost as like a means to an end of your own satisfaction.
Yeah, but I mean, at this point, it kind of cemented. This sort of part, it kind of cemented itself in my brain as like, oh, he's like addicted to sex. Like he is using sex as like a way to
Escape from his own thoughts
escape
and
from
feelings.
his internal conflicts, from his external conflicts, but especially his internal conflicts. And yeah, I don't know. I think that paragraph was really poignant.
All right. We want to discuss some of the. I mean, I feel like if we want to pin down one most important thing, it's really hard.
I mean, probably when he gets beat up.
I think it's Daniel.
Daniel?
Yeah,
like,
that's the guy who
That's
beats him
the
up.
guy who beats him up.
Oh yeah.
Because
Because it sticks with him a
Yeah.
lot.
we see the panic attack. We see him when he has to, where he like kind of
it
changed
takes up like half the story.
Yes,
Like,
and he
the
kind of
aftermath.
changed the story. Like when he was writing it down, because that was like kind of his way of processing it. Was he wrote it down like the events that happened, but then he wrote it as if he died that night.
Yeah, like for his.
And then
Oh yeah, for his
his
creative
club.
writing.
for his creative writing. Well, I don't think he wrote it for his creative writing.
It
He
was for nonfiction. It was supposed to
no,
be like.
no. I think it was what
Well,
happened
he
was
just used it for it.
he used it for it.
Right.
Was he wrote it and then he turned it in as if it was happening. And then they were like, oh, what is this implying? What is this meaning? But it's like
Like if it's nonfiction, then how does the person die at the
You're
end?
not-
How was this written?
You weren't dead.
yeah. But I think maybe it's not like he didn't actually die, but I feel like a part of him died.
Yeah, I feel like
So-
that's kind of what I kind of agree with that. Like, he almost acts like a part of him did die. Like he's just like watching a husk of himself like live out the rest of his life, but like he feels like he kind of died then.
Mm-hmm.
Something
It's
like
really, yeah. So I feel like that's kind of one of the most important. I mean, if not the most important.
And then I would say it's also influential because we see him like afterwards. It's like as we said previously, it's affecting his life. He had a panic attack.
It's just changed him a lot.
Yes, and it's scary thing about, and I worry that he won't talk about it with people, because I feel like he needs to. I feel like he could really go for a therapist.
Yeah,
If
I
you
mean,
can afford one.
universities. No,
That's-
universities have like free counseling.
Oh.
Back
So-
in 2007, did they?
I don't know. I mean, high schools
would
have
you-
counselors
would
and
you
have had
ev-
it for a
would you
while.
even
Not
be
that they've always
comfortable-
been that good at doing that, but
I mean, if you were in Kentucky in 2007, would you really be comfortable going to a counselor and saying, "I think I'm addicted to sex" when you're gay and black?
but would you also? I mean, I feel like on the same
mean-
point, you wouldn't be comfortable going to a therapist either.
What?
You wouldn't be comfortable going to a therapist either.
I would.
Yeah, I guess
you
so.
wouldn't be
But I mean,
comfortable
you
with
could sort of personalize it.
Yeah,
But I mean,
feel
that
like-
costs even more. So.
I mean, it's the counselor's job to like help the students, and I feel like a good counselor would understand, like, would be there for help, even though
But are they good?
No, we don't know.
we don't know if there even is
We're
a
just
counselor.
saying
Well,
that-
I mean, he
yeah.
didn't even try actually. So
Yeah,
well,
that's
we
what
don't
I'm
even
saying.
know if there is one.
yeah.
Yeah. But moving on. Like, I feel like this moment was pretty shocking, but I feel like there's been a lot of shocking moments.
Yes.
I feel like this whole section of the book is kind of underpinned by shock. Like
Mhm.
like oh he's having sex in the car and then he drives off and he gets into a giant car crash.
That was the part that shocked me the most.
Yeah. And then there's the part where the botanist hooks him up with someone, and then he gets feces all over his penis. That's pretty bad.
Sorry.
Pretty shocking. Like the entire, like literally the entire.
And then
section is just
yeah,
shocking.
and then he cries, and then the botanist just kind of
Walks into
Assaults
the
him?
Yeah,
shower.
kind of
Question mark?
sexually assaults him.
yeah,
To
Yeah.
an extent.
it's very bad. And then yeah, it's just kind of one bad moment after another, and just talking about these bad experiences with like a lot of racism,
A lot of reasons.
Yes.
Yeah.
and almost like homophobia.
Not
but,
even,
like,
not
it's
even
almost-
like microaggressions. Just
Yeah.
like
No, just aggression.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
aggression.
We have like the
Macro-
like
macroaggression.
playing the basketball game, and like they
And then
say
says,
the
and then one
N-word.
guy says the N word, and it's
Yeah.
just like
But
it's just thing like that after another.
Also, he kind of tried to justify it. He was like, "Oh, it's."
I think
this
he
dude was being stupid in the game, so I said the N word.
Well, I think he was just trying to explain. I don't know if he was necessarily trying to justify.
Well,
I feel like
I think he was.
Well, I mean, like, I feel like if you say the word, you would think that it's fine to say, and then you would justify it. I think he was trying to justify it. Me personally, I think he was trying to justify it, but I could be wrong. That's just my opinion.
He seems
That's
a
fair.
little. Well, when someone calls you out like that and says, "Hey, did you just do this thing?" Then
Like,
you
well-
automatically take the stance of like, "Well, no, I mean it was just like," and it's just like, "No, you shouldn't have said the thing."
No,
Yeah.
I didn't really get that from that part.
And that's kind of like a people don't want to change thing back to what we were saying earlier.
Mhm.
Because, like, that guy, I don't know if he probably didn't even think he was in the wrong.
No, it's just
Because-
like this is what people say. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, he knew he had done something wrong because after he like paused the game, he was like,
Oh, yeah.
Was it? Well, I wonder if it was that guy that and the other person paused the game. I wonder
Oh,
if he knew he did something
I
wrong.
mean,
Maybe.
not both of them knew something was about to happen.
I mean, by that point, by like what, 2006 or something, 2007, you know you're not supposed to say the N word.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, at least
Honestly,
you know
I
that
don't
enough.
even think Saeed would have known if they didn't pause the game and like be suspenseful about it.
Maybe he kind of heard it. He was drunk and he was
Yeah,
just kind of in and out of
Saeed-
consciousness. But
Saeed
he
was
just,
trying to figure out like why they paused the game, and then he had to like think about what the words were.
well, no, he heard like ER,
Yeah, but
and then he was like, wait, what did what it what did
But
what is
I,
that? And then
but
he
I think
eventually heard.
you were saying that like Saeed wouldn't even have known it if they didn't like pause about it, and like if the one person said, "What did you just say?" or something like that, because he didn't.
Saeed said, "What did you?"
Oh, yeah, he did.
Oh yeah, he
Say
did.
that.
But I think it didn't instantly register when he said it because he was just
No, like
being-
it didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have.
Confused by the interruption, Dane and his roommate sat
Yeah.
with their controllers in their hands, eyes wide, shocked by something. They kept looking at each other, then back at me. Just before I opened my mouth to ask what was going on, I played back the last bit of conversation in my head. An sound. Why would a conversation end with? Okay.
So it says they both. It's like he says they both sprang into action, pointing at each other, blaming each other like two little boys trying to escape the blame for a broken vase.
Mhm.
So like they knew they weren't supposed to.
Right.
Yes.
And then Saeed's like, why would you even say this word? And then it's like they both winced each time I said the word, so I said it again. Not angrily exactly, but not amused either. So it's like, and then it says Dane, it's like, oh, so Dane did say it. A player on my team messed up a play. Dane finally confessed with the bashfulness of a 9-year-old Klansman, which is I
Funny.
I like marked that specifically because it was an interesting sentence. But yeah, like he was. I said, a player on my team messed up a play, and I said it. You know, they knew they weren't supposed to. But it's just stuff like that. I feel like over and over again.
I have to talk about the literary guru thing.
Okay.
Yeah, if you would like to, some of the stuff that's enhanced the story.
So, first person point of view, pretty obvious. It like kind of underpins the entire story. It's because it's a memoir. So, first person point of view is in every sentence, and it sort of reminds the reader. I mean, among other things, it sort of reminds the reader that like this is someone's life experience being filtered through their own person. So this is just a sort of it personalizes the story to an extent, and it sort because like some of the things in this book are like wild, and I have to like kind of consciously remind myself like, oh right, this actually happened.
This is someone's real
This
life.
is someone's
like someone
testimony.
lived through this. Yeah.
Yeah. That was honestly the only one that I thought was really important.
What other topics did you?
There was tone and there was simile.
I think tone. I think it affects, especially after he gets beat up by Daniel, because it almost, or even during that, it kind of shifts because it almost becomes more like.
I mean, there's a lot.
Evil.
There's a lot of scenes where Saeed is just like
evil.
Uses tone really effectively to just like convey how he feels. I mean, it's pretty simple, but like it works effectively. Like he's like looking in the mirror, and he's like, "Oh no, wait, that was similar." Whatever.
But we get what you're saying. Like,
yeah,
he does use tone to enhance the story. So.
Any other questions?
But yeah, I mean, why do we think? Continuing on with this theme of like, why do we think the author is sharing this? I mean, this is bonkers. That's why.
Yeah. Okay. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. Maybe this is the first time he's like really told anyone.
I mean, I think it could be very cathartic, to share your story like this when you've had such a crazy, eventful life. With a lot of bad things,
If I almost died because someone tried to beat me up
after I tried to basically turn them gay, and
turn them.
Well, no. Daniel, he wasn't like seducing Daniel. Daniel took initiative.
No.
Saeed
was rizzing up Daniel.
No,
Daniel tried to get the girl. Girl walked out, and then Saeed walks in and was like, "Hey."
Yeah, but then like he didn't like. Daniel took the initiative. Daniel took off his
Kind
pants.
of.
Daniel reciprocated.
Yes, Daniel reciprocated, but
Saeed initiated.
Yes.
I thought there was like a whole point in this scene where he was like, where Saeed is like surprised at how much initiative Daniel took.
Like he's surprised that Daniel reciprocated as much as he did, and was like, "Oh, let's go to my house."
But Saeed was the one who started it all.
I'm talking about the guy who tried to kill him.
Yes,
Yes,
Daniel
okay.
at the party and all that.
Because
they go to his apartment.
Yeah.
They do?
Yes,
They go back to
Daniel's
his house.
apartment.
Oh, well.
Yeah, and like
I didn't realize.
Daniel tries to get a girl, and like they're in her bedroom, like they're all like at the door.
Yeah, they're all like
listening
listening in. It's hilarious.
And then like she walks out, and he's like, "I'm gonna be interesting," so he walks in to like do that, and then Daniel reciprocates with it. And then eventually, like, they're, like, together the whole night until they go back.
Yeah, eventually Daniel's drunk enough to let his gay side out. And then they go back to his house, and then that
So
whole
they
thing
gaze it
happens.
out.
Yeah, Daniel gaze this kid.
I really like the scene where it's like, where Saeed is like, wow, this guy is really bad at giving head. It feels like he's beating me up. And then he's like,
and then he starts beating me up.
I was like, oh.
Oh, gosh.
It's fine.
It was
in the book.
No, but I mean, like, we have teachers here.
No, I mean, it's fine. They're not around here right now.
It's fine.
I mean, yeah. I mean, and then if we want to get onto, like, if we want to move on to, based on what you've read so far, why do you think the author is sharing their story and, like, what legacy are they trying to leave? So, I feel like continuation, like, I remember in the first chapter or the first section of the reading, I said that he wanted to give an example of, like, show other people who are reading the memoir, like, what it, like, how being black and being gay affects your life, and especially how if you are both, how they really affect your life, and how, like, he wants people to be, like, their true self in a way. And then I feel like with this section of the reading, it also like continues in on that with more of like we see more of him changing who he is for other people in order to get what he wants to give people else what they want, which like it's all like as mentioned previously, like why be yourself when you can be like interesting or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Why be happy when you can be interesting? And then a new name blossomed into his mouth every time he met someone new. And we see how he acts around college and like in previous readings and like in with his friends, how he like had one group of friends and he acted differently with another group of friends. And then with his mom after he said like where he was like, I came out as gay but I didn't come out as myself, as you said mentioned previously. And it's showing like all of these sides of how he is changing who he is. And it's showing how that negatively affects his life and how it's hurting him. And I feel like in this next chapter we're gonna see more of like how he went from like being that person who changes themselves to a person who is their true self and who embraces who they are. And I feel like that's where this story is leading to as we think more about like the being proud to be black and gay, and then also being proud with who you are and being your true self, no matter how hard that can be with other people in your life.
Yeah, I think he's kind of. Yeah, I agree. I think he's leaving behind this idea of just like, at the end of the day, you are who you are, and nothing's gonna change that. And so, you learn to be proud and happy of who you are, and learn how to fully accept that, and not, and really like not accepting that and not being happy about that is just gonna lead you to a lot of unhappiness in your life. Like, and maybe lead yourself also into a lot of really bad situations.
Did you have any thoughts on like the legacy that he was trying to read?
No, I think I said it.
Okay.